So welcome, everybody. I'm very excited to be here tonight. It's not my first time, and I'm still excited to be here tonight, and that should tell you everything that you need to know, because every time I join this process, it just gets deeper and more exciting, and I just see more possibilities for how we can all take inspiration from this. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Mia. Well, in fact, let's make a little further ado, because I had a thought this afternoon. You know, one of the things that so many schools try to limit is curiosity that comes with a bit of impulsivity. And if Mia didn't have that splash of impulsivity to go with her burning curiosity, we would not have this movie and we would not be able to have this inspiration. So here's to that. And having teased you with that little snippet, Mia, you can tell us, what do I mean?
Oh, thank you, Jenna, and thanks for your facilitation and your enthusiasm. So my name is Mia Schmallenbach. I work at Quest, Quality Education in Europe for Sustainable Social Transformation. And what we do is we're now a big network of many organizations throughout Europe, and for which we organize a lot of free trainings and funding sessions, etc. And what happened with this movie is we heard about this one school, and me and my colleague, we just needed to go see how Charlie was managing to pull off what you're about to see in the movie. So we just had to go there. What I need to say is we had no intention of filming. We just wanted to go there, have the chance to spend some time in the school, and just ask many questions and just get the feeling. And so when we arrived there, we very quickly realized we had to film, we had to do something. So it wasn't planned. We had no professional equipment, and we just took out our phones and we just created a station in one of the rooms where we just told all the kids, listen, anyone who wants to come and speak about the school, just come into this room and we'll interview you, because there's just something really special going on here. And so what you're going to see is the results of these 2 days where we were there with the phone cameras. And so this is the result, and I hope it's going to be very inspiring as much as it is for us. So
Peace, peacefulness, choice, learning to engage your future, learning to manage your community, learning to make use of freedom, learning to make good use of your time. That's why I just love coming back every time for more inspiration. So we're very, very fortunate today to have special guests with us that you have already met. Derry, who's been a deputy head principal and school inspector in the UK school system. He'll have a few words in a moment. But to also just mention, I don't know, Derry, have you dropped another way as possible link into the chat? Because I'd like to encourage you to do that, because Derry's actually written a memoir about his time creating a democratic reality in his classroom in a public school in the UK, which is also really worth a read. Buy 10 copies and give 9 to friends. And so Derry is here with us to answer questions. And we also are very blessed to have Charlie himself, who at this point doesn't really need an introduction. But I'm really, really glad that Charlie has taken the advice that Derry gave in the movie, that it's time to come out from under your bushel and start shining your light for the rest of us to take inspiration, because I think we really want to see all children everywhere having options like these. So welcome to the two of you. And perhaps you'd each like to say a few words of introduction or an opening comment. And in the meantime, if anyone has questions, please drop them into the chat. I think we are a small enough group that we could probably also switch on some microphones and have people ask their questions in person. So if you want to also use the raise hand function, that's also fine. And who would like to say hello first? Charlie, Derry? Charlie, go for it.
Derry, go on, please.
Oh, Derry. Okay, Jerry, you've been nominated. You're the ancestor. Would you like to speak first?
Oh dear, can you hear me?
Yes, beautifully.
Okay. I love the film, except the bits with me in it. I think, oh, how's that boring man just going on talking, saying the obvious? You don't need to say all that. The kids speak for themselves, and the way Charlie works with the kids speaks for themselves. But there are some interesting questions, I think, that the film raises. Why Suvemäe is so interesting to me is because I've worked all my life virtually within the state of public school systems in the UK. You have to be careful not to use the word public school in an English setting because it has a very distinct meaning. Our public schools, so called, are very expensive private schools that produce generations of idiot prime ministers like Boris Johnson. So that's not what I mean. I mean our state school system. When I qualified as a teacher, I realised I had a choice really of working in the private progressive schools that I discovered as a trainee teacher, one of which, of course, has led to Suvemäe's name. Suvemäe is Estonian for Summer Hill, which, of course, is a school that was of great interest to me when I was young, a school where every kid had a say and participated in meetings that had real power, could make decisions that affected the whole community. It was obvious to me that these were really safe places. I make that point in the film. Many kids hate school, many kids are frightened in school. Many aren't, but many are, and there's nothing they can do about it. We force them to go to these places called schools, and then we force them to go to lessons. Worst of all, in a way, we force them to take high stakes tests that create enormous amount of anxiety. I mean, one of the things that comes out of the film for me, and it's a little bit confused, I think the head teacher, who I have great admiration for, perhaps Charlie could say a bit more about his relationship with her, or perhaps he shouldn't if she's going to see this film. But it's very interesting that she switches. Why does she want to create this freer environment where kids can learn to take responsibility? Does she see this, as she seems to say at one point in the film, as just for some kids who struggle a bit with school and learn to realize they need to learn to realize how important regular school is and mainstream school. So they would go to a kind of alternative school like Suvemäe, almost as therapy in order to prepare themselves for going back to real education in the mainstream school. But at other points in the film, she seems to say, this is an amazing environment where kids who have real talents can pursue those talents as far and as fast as they want to, which obviously they wouldn't be able to do if they went back to the mainstream school. So perhaps that's a point we could consider. Is this for everybody? And in my experience, it absolutely is. I'll finish just by mentioning some research that I did for the UK government a year or two ago when it was thinking of introducing some pupil capacity to take part in school decision making as part of education for democratic citizenship. The Minister of Education at the time wanted to introduce this for all 14 to 16-year-olds, and he was attacked by a very right-wing chief inspector of schools who said this was a complete waste of time and kids should be preparing for mathematics tests, not taking part in decision making in school. So I got the job for the minister of doing some research to see that whether schools that really did listen to the students systematically and create as many opportunities as possible for those kids to take control of their own learning and to take control of the way the whole community worked. I found 12 out of 3,500 English state secondary schools that were seriously applying the principles of Suvemäe. And I looked at their examination results, their attendance figures, and the number of kids who were being excluded for antisocial behaviour. And guess what? When we compared these more democratic schools with the average for all other schools in similar socioeconomic circumstances, we found that the more democratic schools were getting better, not worse, academic results, particularly from so-called low ability boys. That was very interesting to the minister because he had very strong views on juvenile crime. And we were able to deduce, if you like, that one of the best ways to reduce juvenile crime would be to change the culture of our schools, because the attendance figures were also much better in the more democratic schools. It's absolutely obvious why, because the kids wanted to come to school. They thought of it as their school and not something that was being done to them. And then the third thing was the exclusions for antisocial behaviour, which we have vast numbers of now since COVID. It's an enormous problem in England, well, in the UK as a whole, and much more widely, that many kids are being excluded for so-called antisocial behaviour. We found in the more democratic schools that was hardly happening at all. Even in schools that were in poor inner city areas where they were surrounded by gang culture, even in those schools, the exclusions were virtually zero in the more participative democratic schools. So my belief is this is really for everybody, and not just for the more gifted to have more space to rush ahead, or for the kids who've learned to hate school to learn to like it a bit more in order to go back to regular classes. It's not just for those, it's for everybody. And a question I'd like to give Charlie was, if suddenly, Charlie, instead of about 10% of the parents in the Italian school, or 10 or 15% choosing Suvemäe, what would you say if suddenly 80% of parents said, we want this for our kids? I'd be intrigued to know what you'd say to the head teacher and how you'd set about making it happen.
Thank you, Derry. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's an honor, a pleasure to be able to share with you our experience. And this is definitely not exclusively my hard work. This has been a process that has lasted for many years. People in this chat and also outside of this chat, of this meeting, have contributed greatly to putting together the ideas. And also there has been like my shogun, asking questions, me asking questions and getting reflections with him. And it's been a long process, and I'm glad that it can, thanks to the support of Quest, be out there providing possibilities for other people. So at least the perspective that something could be in a different way. So I think that Derry, your point is very valid. I think that within this kind of schools, there is also the perspective from adults, the perspective from young people. There are some kids who come effectively very hurt, with low motivation, without really this self-esteem background, or being willing to or able to speak out their mind or to express how they're feeling. But there are also other kids who come and say, I get bored and I would like to deal with the academics and also have time for my own, or I would like adults to listen to my suggestions, and there is one kid now who came this year, super smart, and he had so many ideas as soon as he arrived, and he's little by little connecting with other kids, and we noticed that the social part is really important. At the same time, he's very smart, but he has no routines of how to learn better, how to organize the time, and so on. And he shares a very negative view of himself. And this process of reflecting with the person without judgment has got us to a point in which we are able to collaborate, to find middle ground, the compromise in which I am offering help or support, but only when he's ready to get that support. And this, I feel, it's something that, whatever the reason, the parents or the kids are looking for an alternative, is like the space, the experience that we reach together, which is understanding that learning is a collaborative issue, that is not adults taking responsibility for young people's learning, as usually happens in conventional schools. Teachers or parents. Teachers get the mission to enforce a curriculum on kids, and later on, if some of the kids do not manage to get the expected results, then teachers call parents and bring the responsibility to parents. Our approach is very simple: is that young people need to have this space for them to be part of a community, but also to get the support. And it's only meaningful at the moment when the learner asks the question, why? Why do I need to engage in this process? Why is it important for me to, address my challenges in mathematics or writing better? Why? And we accompany the kids in this process. So I feel that on the one hand, it depends a lot. We have had some cases of kids who feel very well, in the beginning, it's a bit disoriented, getting to the school, not really understanding how it goes. Little by little, they are getting into all the routines of decision-making, of speaking about the learning, of getting the support they need, of making mistakes as a learning possibility. And sometimes it's the parents who are feeling super anxious about the learning in more conventional terms. We also do follow up with the parents. We want to have this vision together, which is truly important, is that the person manages to get out of a situation of powerlessness and starts taking control over their interests, their life, their rights, which is super important. So I feel that in the end, just I'm mumbling here. There are many reasons why kids come, but in the end, we see that we are sharing this kind of vision with the kids. What is truly important, which is dignity, which is sense of community, which is let's get together and think about the agreements, what is needed in the school, how to solve conflicts, how to speak about their challenges, how to be able to organize their time meaningfully. So as an alternative, it should be there, but definitely it should be there if all parts agree and understand the conditions, the limitations, but also the possibilities. So in that sense, I believe that this kind of project could be aligned to professional learning communities, intentional communities, building together that process. Within the state system, that means that we also need to accommodate to requirements and to the demands of the state in terms of exams or paperwork. I saw somebody was writing something about paperwork. I know, paperback. Sorry. Rachel.
I'm really curious to know how you got the powers to be to allow you to start this.
Well, in Estonia is a country where, unlike other places like Poland or Spain that I know, or even in the US, perhaps in some cases, the local schools have a wide share of power. So it is the directors who hire the teachers. They don't get a centralized power hiring the teachers and then sending them to different kind of schools. So there was the possibility for me to connect with some people who were inside of, let's say, an alternative education movement in Estonia. And when we met the school director, Mari Sulc, she connected this to their experiences in innovation in education, the interest-based lessons and the project days. But also she realized, because I organized a dossier for her also to understand a little bit better what was behind it. And she realized that there was a connection, a very strong connection in between the possibility of participating in decision-making and improvements in mental health. And this is a big, big issue nowadays. I would say that around the world, in Estonia, Estonia gets in Europe the highest PISA result. Sorry to our Finnish friends, we took that place. But at the same time, it is one of the countries with the highest rate of teenage and youth self-harm and suicide. So the next pandemic, in my opinion, is a mental health pandemic. And we are seeing it. So she understood, she saw that actually there needed to be something a bit more flexible, that was autonomous. And this is, I would say that the most important thing is that we have taken up on the responsibilities by the state, but at the same time we have had a lot of room to organize our own timetable, to organize it with kids, for instance, collaboratively with the students, organizing the timetable, to decide on how many lessons we would be teaching mathematics, for instance. The interesting thing is that since we have this kind of community in which the kids participate also in the decision making and also in conflict resolution, we get much less disruptions, fewer disruptions during lessons. So the kids take shorter time, more individualized approach and support to cover a program that would last forever in a conventional school. So I feel that this is like the kind of compromise, gaining the responsibility and the possibility to engage in academic learning, but at the same time gaining enough time for them to follow their own interest. So I think it's really courageous. I think that many directors are not as progressive thinking as Marilis Schultz, but I think it's possible and it should be an alternative within public schools. I have been trying to connect with other school teachers, directors. It hasn't been so easy. What Mia, we were speaking one day, and when schools are asked, "Are you democratic? Are you a democratic education example?" Of course we are, and then it turns out that it is not. that there is how they are seeing themselves, but actually the mechanisms, timetable, curriculum, and relationships, they all need to be reframed. And if people are ready to do that, then maybe something is possible, in terms of addressing those challenges.
Doesn't your government dictate what you are and are not allowed to do in the schools?
Well, there is a state curriculum. There is a minimum of some subjects that need to be, time-wise, needs to be covered, but not really. There is a lot of flexibility. And another thing that we have been doing is that regularly we have provided the local authorities with overviews of what we are doing and how we are doing it. So for instance, last year, I prepared, as my last year as head of studies, I'm not anymore in that position. I prepared an overview explaining what we have done, what kind of learning, what kind of processes and projects we have been participating in, but also, for instance, what is truly important for them. What were our results in the state exams? And interestingly enough, as there was pointing out, our kids got better results than in the main house. In the main house, they didn't want to know about this very much. But finally, 3 weeks ago or so, we had a workshop with the teachers, and the school director brought it up. People were opening their eyes, because there are lots of misrepresentations of what democratic education could be, right? So it's funny that when we say democratic education, people think, oh, the children do whatever they want and there are no limits, no boundaries. But within democracies, we have boundaries. Within democracies, we have responsibilities, but we also have possibilities. So it's actually considering young people as citizens. I feel that it should be the norm, right? Unfortunately, it is not. Dora, please.
Hi. Yeah, it's really interesting, and Deri, thanks for bringing up UBI, because that's one thing I'm also working on in the lab network internationally. But if we are looking at education system, I'm only a parent. But my background is in education in the sense that I studied learning. So I'm not a teacher, but I studied what is learning and what people think learning is and what it should be, etc. And I also got involved with systems change movements, etc., as well as permaculture and sociocracy, which I thought would be really the basis for whatever we do in life, including schools. So my biggest kind of challenge, and that's why I'm thinking and asking you if you're what you could share from your experience. My biggest challenge is that even though I'm very involved with the parents association in the school, we are trying to establish an edible school garden, a food forest next to the school, and provide the opportunity, you know, for all teachers to engage and make it a truly cross-generational learning environment, in a sense that we also have very near the school, we have the transition hub, which is the transition network hub in Finland. So we are doing a lot of urban farming and agriculture related and sustainable life related questions, etc. So the possibilities are amazing here. But I'm not in the school, I'm only a parent. And of course, what do I do with the officials who are, you know, mandating what should be done in the school? How to engage with the head teacher, who is, I'm not saying she is against the idea, but she's not promoting it enough for the teachers to get excited about it. Let's say that way. So I'm curious what kind of either Derry or Charlie would say about this. Like, how would you move forward in this situation?
Derek, would you like to?
After you.
You're tricky. I feel that one big factor influencing people's decisions nowadays is fear. So I feel that when we, and I have done this a couple of times with youth workers, but also with school teachers, when we address fears that adults have in regards to young people being able to engage in power sharing, and we start mapping the fears and we start addressing those fears through, for instance, neuroscience, through examples, real life examples of how actually some of the initial views or predispositions in regards to different pedagogical arrangements are based on that fear that might not be rational, but it's, let's say, an evolutionary tool that keeps us safe. I feel that people, when they start seeing possibilities and they start being more reflective about their fears, there is a possibility to start building on, you know, let's start together creating different set of possibilities. I feel that when, for instance, Derry speaks about the 20% approach, the proposal of 20%, the example of schools or learning environments or Google working on or showing how this free time for exploration is valuable, not only in terms of developing professional or academic skills, but also in terms of sensations of well-being, of well, locus of control, which is super important. Then people start considering the possibilities. Okay, maybe we will not have the 20%, maybe we can have a 10%, right? Let's do 3 hours a week that the kids will work on their own projects. I feel that, again, you know, if we understand the fears, we can address them through literature, science, and experiences. by other people around the world. I would start asking, what is preventing them from creating these spaces for young people? Is it about filling the curricular requirements? Is it about not being able to demonstrate that their kids are learning as everybody else is learning? What is it that is keeping them from sharing decision-making possibilities with kids? But at the same time, the balance, freedoms, but also responsibilities. And I feel that kids are very wise in that. If they understand, look, there is a red line here, we need to deal with this, but we can have these other spaces, they take it. They say, be it, it makes sense. I will have some free time, but I also have to deal with academics. Why not? So it might have to do with a perspective, a view of over childhood. It might have to do with fears that they might have. Also with parents, the same situation with parents.
So in the movie, your principal spoke about the trouble she has with inspectors. And you were just talking about, your superior results. And Derry, you've been an inspector, and I know you've also done some provisional work on how to differently inspect schools so that we actually get this picture of more than just the academic results. I'm wondering if you have anything, first Derry and then also Charlie, to say about, how could we maybe start putting together information from inspections of places like Suvemäe together with the Hannam report to start actually advocating to inspection systems that they change the way they inspect schools, and that would also then make space for these alternative experiments to really show their mettle. Derry?
I think we should actually be inspecting, looking for those opportunities, of course. I did when I was an inspector. Whenever I found a school that was creating space and time for young people to follow their own purposes, passions, interests, concerns, etc., whenever I found it, I was able to write that school up very favourably, because it was almost always associated with a safe place, with a creative place, with a place that kids wanted to come to. And I mean, it was very interesting. But the question of an alternative inspection system, I mean, teachers in England are driven into the ground, driven to despair by our most authoritarian, dreadful, coercive, judgmental inspection system. We've just had one of the turning points, I think, that will bring about real change, is it's coming to the surface of how many head teachers have committed suicide after inspection or under the threat of inspection. On one very attractive human being, just a lovely person, who was head of a primary school in Reading, near London, was told that her school had failed the inspection over some technicalities of child protection. It wasn't actually protecting the safety or happiness of children. They were pure paper technicalities. She was told that the school had failed, but that she wasn't allowed to discuss it with anyone until the report was published. And in between the inspection and the report being published, she killed herself. And that is almost a sacrifice, which has created a sort of wave of horror throughout teaching, and the teaching profession, that also has called many, many inspectors to question what it is they do. It's interesting for me that if you look at the time left for kids to genuinely do what they want to do in Suvemäe, it probably isn't much more than 20% by the time you've gone along with the various national curriculum, state requirements, parents' requirements, school requirements, etc. And I'm arguing that we could move towards 20% in all schools, and people are beginning to listen to the idea that if you're going to have a national curriculum, fair enough, but isn't 80% enough? Surely we could make a space within that school curriculum for all kids to have the opportunity to explore their own thoughts, interests, and concerns. I'm sorry I ducked the question and passed it on to Charlie. I was busy trying to construct an answer to Rachel. And I think the little dialogue between Rachel and I, we should have put it in public, Rachel, and not done it in a private message. Rachel said to me, well, perhaps she doesn't want it said in publicly. Sorry, I should be careful with that. But she questioned whether it was appropriate for all kids, and rather challenged me on that. And I realised I hadn't made it clear enough. I don't think we should suddenly create self-directed education opportunities for 100% of the time immediately. I think that just wouldn't be politically possible. We haven't got the staff who can manage it. We probably haven't got the budgets that could manage it. Though wherever I see schools allocating some time to the kids' own interests, it doesn't actually cost much. I mean, one of the reasons I'm finding some people in what I hope will be our next government later this year beginning to listen to ideas like this is that when you say to them, look, it doesn't need to be incredibly expensive. Charlie's experiment, I thought it was very interesting that the head teacher did say that she is allocating a disproportionate amount of resources to supporting Suvemäe. She claimed it anyway, Charlie. I don't know if it's true, but she said that. So a question I'd like to ask Charlie really is, do you think to do this well, it actually will be more expensive, or am I right in arguing that it certainly needn't cost any more? And maybe, in fact, if the motivation of kids is increased and they start to really learn because they want to learn, it will actually save money.
I think, okay, on the topic of inspection, I believe that we need to do more collaboration with universities. The inspection as a process needs to be more informed on what actually learning is, which is not only about passing exams or completing textbooks, or in the case of some places, how many centimeters there is in between the whiteboard and the first table, but it rather needs to involve young people into providing feedback for that space. You know, in this sense, we need to have a wider perspective on what learning is and not only focusing on the academics. On the topic of whether it is for everybody and everybody should be getting this possibility, we have had some conversation with Richard about it. I think there needs to be a synchrony in between home and the school. What do I mean? It could be tremendously cynical for a child, or perhaps the child will become cynical when in a learning environment we're speaking about dignity, human rights, equality, shared participation, but at home they're having a dictatorship, no rights whatsoever. I don't mean that then kids need to be in schools where they don't have rights, so that it would be equal. No, what I mean is that for these processes to work out properly, families and the school need to be on the same page. We need to understand that time is not money. This is something I love about Mayan philosophy. Time is not money. Time is art. Time is connection. Time is growth. And some people take longer. In the case, for instance, of Lucas in the film, Lucas was a person who came with really low self-esteem. The parents were like thinking, this is the last resort. We don't know what to do. Please help us. And we started working with the family. And Lucas was in such a bad place that he decided that I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to take any responsibility, you know, and if there is decision making, I will sit in the corner and I will be there, but I'm not participating. And if there is a lesson, I will sit there, but I'm not doing anything. When I speak with him, I said, but you are making a decision. You are taking responsibility for that decision. I feel that is okay. We spoke with the families, and I pointed out to the family, look, Lucas needs time, so give the time. You know, at some point, Lucas, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, I cannot tell you how long it could last, but at some point, Lucas will start answering that question. Why is it important? Why is it for me to start accepting the support that I am provided? Why is it important for me to start asking questions about my learning? Lucas repeated 1 year, so it means that failed one of the I think it was the 9th grade, and repeated it. When the year started, as a second year, his second year in the 9th class, Lucas was totally engaged. Found the situation in which there was no judgment, in which he was accepted, he was provided the support to go through, but the support didn't come only from the school, it came also from home. And that's why I feel that the more we are focusing on, specifically in public schools, the more we are focusing only working with kids and not working with all the teachers or families, we are just addressing one perspective of the whole complex map of relationships. Self-determination theory, again, it's like blah, 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 blah. The relationship is at the bottom. This is what sustains everything. Then we provide enough time, enough possibilities for them to explore autonomy, to experience autonomy. I decide what to do, but I do feel that there should be functional boundaries. I like video games. I play video games. And I feel that they're super cool. Now, I wouldn't recommend sitting for 12 hours playing video games myself. I think that schools, and this is something I learned in Spain while doing the research, I feel that schools need to be a space for human interaction and growth. And in that sense, the functional boundaries make it so that people can start connecting with each other, start reflecting themselves on others. If families believe that this is a truly important thing, that, you know, if my kid feels better at neuroscience, then my kid will start building on his or her own or their own life project. We stop judging and we provide the possibilities for people to build on their skills, on their plans. But if we make it so that everybody from now on will have 80% of the time for their own interests and 20% for learning whatever the state curriculum says, I feel it wouldn't work, because it would be a top-down decision. The decision, and I feel that this is the point, the decision of being in Suvemäe is bottom-up. It's the kids. Nobody should be, and I tell this to kids as well when they are either displaying some attitudes towards others which are not gentle or appreciative, or when they are, you know, like disrespectful or disregarding the possibilities. Nobody should be in Suvemäe if they don't want to be in Suvemäe. If they feel that they need another thing, perfect. We need to respect that. But if they decide that they need to be in Suvemäe, then we expect them to enjoy the freedoms and to take the responsibilities of being part of a community. The same goes for adults, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. I just want to check, as far as I know, we are ending 2 minutes ago, or have I got the wrong end of the stick? Yes. Okay, time flies when we're really engaged. And I just want to condense a couple of things that have hit the chat there to close, because I think, you know, when you mentioned time, that triggered a lot of things for a lot of people. I see there, you know, Richard saying, for example, maybe we need to consider that taking time from families and time from kids is possibly the greatest theft there is. And I'm reminded of a very wise thing that my son said, who was self-directing all his life, when he was about 12. He said, "Mom, why do they say time is money? Time is time." We've only got one life. What's actually more precious? So I really, really appreciate the time that you've given tonight, Charlie and Derry and Mia and everybody here who's made this happen, and everybody who's come to participate and ask the questions and be here. And I'd like to encourage everybody to share this recording. We will make it available, and you can let everybody know that it's really worth a little bit of time to engage with this and take the inspiration. And let's see if we can keep these ripples spreading and bring this reality to more and more people. So thank you very, very much, everybody. And good afternoon, good evening, good morning, and good night. Richard, do you want to say a closing thing there? I see your hand is up and very clear.
Not closing so much, but I'm going to be continuing this conversation, an event on Thursday, and another way of looking at schools within schools. One of the ideas that I'll be pursuing is how can we provide for people to get a lived experience with democratic education without feeling like they're risking their future. So minimizing the sense of risk, but providing that lived experience. My experience has been that it's not enough to go and observe a democratic school in operation. You need to live that experience. You get to see how young people who come in really upset, disturbed, mental health, a major problem, within 6 weeks are shining again. And once you see that, you just have to become a advocate for the democratic approach. For kids who live it, if they can get an opportunity to do that, a genuine one that is immersive. It's, again, not enough just to observe it or to have a day or two of it. If you can be immersed in it for a period of, let's say, a semester at school, and then maybe go back into the regular system, but you've had that immersive experience. And we don't have to get into discussing democracy or anything else. We can just cast it in the light of what employers are calling for: more responsible people with critical thinking skills. Let's give them a semester in 21st century learning skills that employers are demanding, and they can practice those skills against a mandatory curriculum that the ministry has. I've had experience with that. And what I found is that even when students have a mandatory curriculum, if they have control over how they learn it in a fraction of the time, and then they have all kinds of time to do the things that they really want to do. And so just to begin practicing things that way. Dora, I think from your questions that we have similar experience. Canada is, they control their education systems at the provincial level like your states do. And depending on who the government of the day is, they have a big effect over the kind of education the kids get. So my thanks to everybody for being here and carrying on this conversation.
Right. If Derry, Charlie, Mia, anybody else like to say a closing word?
A.S. Neil said, freedom is what we believe in at Summer Hill, not license. And anyone who's worked in a democratic way with kids knows that this is the way to develop the kind of responsibility that has to go hand in glove with freedom. This is the way to do it. And we need to just go on saying that, and we need to get your film into as many TV stations as possible, Charlie.
I want to thank for the support. Yes, Rachel.
I just wanted to mention that when I was still teaching, I said that education was a pyramid, and it had to have 3 substantial foundations. One was the child, one was the parent, and one was the teacher. And if any of those fell down on the job, the pyramid wouldn't stand.
You definitely need the whole community around, and we have had in some situations that one part of this pyramid is absent. It's complicated. Yeah, definitely, it's a collective process. I would like to thank you guys for making this possible. It's a real pleasure to share some thoughts, and I would like to invite everybody to, if you haven't, to read. There is a book. It's very inspiring, and it shows that even within conventional environments, it is possible to bring this possibility for kids to start participating together on that learning experience, which should be, it is supposed to be enjoyable, right? So and it's supposed to be personalized. So very much recommended reading, and yeah, looking forward to next opportunities to talk about possibilities, and to also, if somebody wants support, please let us know. We will be gladly helping and supporting.
If I may just make a correction, my comment before about state and provincial control, I mentioned Dora, but it was actually Rachel's comments from Florida that I was intending to refer to. The Florida experience, from what I can gather, is very much like the Ontario experience that I have.
Wonderful. Final word, Mia, if you'd like.
I just want to thank everyone for this wonderful opportunity to share and to continue sharing this great work, and to keep meeting again. So that's wonderful. Thanks everyone for making this happen.
Thank you, Mia.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Goodbye.